Yeah, we on a Sistahship. Come with us, we on a Sistahship. Yeah, we on a Sistahship. Roll with us, we on a Sistahship. Sistahship, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistahship, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this. Sistahship, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Sistahship, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. We're my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. We're my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. Substance, oh, sis.
You know we on a mission, no games. Help each other get over some things. Build strength, bring change. Cause we've been through the rain.
Now it's time to shine like bling.
Let's talk about
Life skills,
we building up our quality to
right wills.
We rolling out of poverty.
Love heals.
So we become the prodigy of how a sistership could be a really hot commodity. Stand together, we united, hold hands. Support each other dreams and our plans. Doing everything we can. Just to show we understand the power of a friendship family.
Live life on purpose.
Together we learning. Yeah, let's talk. We don't wanna see you hurt, and we here for each other.
No matter the color, networking.
That's for sure and for certain. Come on. Yeah, we on a sistership. Come with us. We on a sistership.
Yeah, we on a Sistahship.
Roll with us.
We on a Sistahship.
We're my sisters. We got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with you. We're my sisters. We got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with you.
Sistahship, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistahship, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Let's talk about that. Talk about me. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about living. Talk about this now. Come on, let's talk about it. We on a Sistahship. We on a Sistahship. We on a Sistahship. Happy blessed Sunday, y'all. Happy blessed Sunday. You are seeing the Sistahship Network. I am so happy to be here today. Today, I call this my Self-Love Sunday. I shared something about self-love. The greatest love is self-love.
Absolutely.
If we don't have self-love, we can't love anybody else.
That's where it begins.
That's where it begins.
And the amount of love you have for yourself is the amount of love you'll have for others.
Others. Thank you.
And if you can't show love to them, you let them go on, because some people don't know how to receive love.
That's right.
You know, so you don't hurt them any more than they probably already hurt. Mm-hmm. So you let them, you bless them to move on, mm-hmm. and then you speed out fast.
So today, I want to introduce my guest, Mama C, the Oracle, our founder of the Sistahship Network. Mama C, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, you know. I'm enjoying the warm weather, and, you know, it's going too fast. But you know what? I'm just going to be thankful for every day. Every day I wake up, I'm thankful. And I do the best I can, the most I can, and I hit it and quit it.
All right. I heard that. Hit it and quit it. Okay. Whoa.
I don't know how anyone's taking that.
I don't know. It's all in respect, y'all. It's all in respect here. We are here at the Gynesis Radio Station. I have two amazing guests today that I want to introduce. We have Ugg on my left, your right, for those that are watching. Ugg, how you doing?
I'm all right.
How's it going today? You had to
a little jittery.
A jittery, man. We all good. You had to travel in from out of state, came up into the station.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
traffic's been crazy.
We're thankful. We know you bring a lot to the table.
That's
We've
right.
heard you before.
Yes.
We've met you recently,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're just excited.
Thank you.
We're excited about the connection.
Man, you've been dropping some knowledge calling in on the radio station. That's all I'm going to say. So we're happy to have you here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And to my right, it is Eli. I call him Eli. Okay. Some of you may know him as MG Robinson. He has a book out. How are you doing, Eli?
I'm great. I'm great.
Happy to be.
Peace and blessings, everyone.
That's right. I have a little short story to say about Eli. I'm going to put it out there.
Put it out there.
I'm going to put it out there. So Eli is class of 91. I'm going to shout out Passaic High School in New Jersey. Class of the first. We were the first to have a huge graduating class.
Wow.
We were the first class to go on a trip to Florida, Disney
wonderful,
World.
wonderful.
As a I didn't get a chance to go because my parents were kind of strict. But
and they said no way.
And they said no, she's not going. We had the VP come into my house, talk to my parents. They were like, "Yeah, we ain't buying it. No, we ain't
going with that.
Chauffeur, no chauffeur, she's not going." But quick story about Eli is prom, okay. He was stag. I was stag because I wasn't allowed to bring nobody. My parents, again, strict. So the photographer, we were standing right next to the photographer about to take our pictures, and the photographer's like, do you guys want to take pictures together? I was like, why not? What the heck? We might as well. I had my white and pink sequins dress, all mermaid cut, and Eli had his nice white dapper with the black. I mean, and
with the James Bond.
With the James Bond scarf.
You couldn't tell me nothing when I was 17.
Look, you couldn't tell any of us anything when we were 17.
Oh, God.
But I'm excited to have you on because A, support of our class of 91, and B, with being the topic for today is very important, and it's constantly talked about. And you being a law enforcement officer, detective, as well as releasing a book, Overseer, which pretty much gives your story.
Yes.
So I definitely want to make sure that we, talk about that because the subject today is policing in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want another life taken.
Absolutely.
Right? But before we get started, because this is a hot topic right here, before we get started, I want to acknowledge We Share Corp. They are our sponsors for the Sistahship Network. Thank you to We Share for being a sponsor. Thank you for We Share being a sponsor. I want to say that they offer an array of services that give back to the community. With that said, they have a couple of items or events going on, a couple things that I wanted to quickly touch on. They have a raffle ticket contest going on right now for a scooter. And this is not no cheap scooter, y'all.
This is an electric scooter.
This is an electric scooter. It's got all the bells and whistles on it. They currently are doing a raffle. You're able to purchase tickets online with WeShare, www.WeShareCorp.foodbank.com. You can go in person to their store location, 746 Milford Road in East Stroudsburg, or you can call 570-269-1929. If y'all want to raffle for this ticket contest for the scooter, now's the time to do it because the drawing will be held on Friday, August 13th at 4 p.m. So I know somebody wants a scooter. They're also doing a big book bag giveaway. They're distributing book bags on August 14th from 2 to 4 o'clock at their location. Once again, they're asking people to provide donations of items for the book bag. You can, again, contact them directly, go to the store, offer the items up. You can call them, offer a donation, but they are doing this only for Monroe County students. You have to be registered in Monroe County, and you have to be a student in a Monroe County school. Again, this is in Pennsylvania. So with that said, go ahead, register your children for a book bag. They are distributing them on August 14th, 2 to 4. And again, we ask for donations for them to be able to fill these bags. Again, www.WeShareCorpFoodBank.com. And with that said, a couple services that they're offering that I want to talk about is they're also offering services for moving and cleaning services. Now, what they do is, for anybody who needs these cleaning services or move-out services, there's a low-cost rate of $450. But with that rate, they're giving back to the community, back to those who don't have the resources to be able to move themselves or the services that they're providing. So this is a great way to kind of put back into the community. You get a service, that money goes into the community, and they utilize that for the resources that they offer. So a lot of great things. Again, Melissa Reed, We Share Corp, thank you so much for being a sponsor for the Sistahship Network.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking about community, redefining policing in our communities. So important topic, as I said. I mean, I think that we all know with everything that's been going on over the number of years with, policing in communities and how people are feeling, and you've had, a lot of people, impacted by police brutality or, and I think we need to get to a place where we kind of, and, one thing about the Sistahship and our network is really about healing, moving forward, understanding how we can communicate better, how we can work together as a community, as individuals, heal and move forward, and learn from our mistakes, and how do we progress forward. And I think that's really important to talk about, because we are in a state of flux, of things changing. There's the political climate, there's COVID going on, there's again, you have the Chauvin case that just got just happened, and Chauvin was charged and is incarcerated now. So there's a lot of things going on, but I want to start with kind of taking a step back, and between Ugg and Eli, I would love to kind of get your from Eli perspective. You wrote a book, Overseer, about your life experience and how it got you to deciding to be an officer or law enforcement. And being a black man in law enforcement today, it's a difficult period. Yeah. It's a difficult period. So I want to kind of have you kind of speak to, your experiences, from childhood up, because I think people need to understand the cliff notes, because I want them to get the book, the cliff notes of what it is that you experienced through life and how you got to where you are today and to decide to be a law enforcement officer.
Well,
and I know it's a lot.
Well, currently I am a major crimes detective. I work in Plainfield, New Jersey.
Major crimes.
There.
When I first wrote the book, if you read the book, I gave the city that I work in an alias. I called it Brookfield, because I didn't want any pushback from anything that I said to affect the city in a negative way. Because I love the city that I work for. I love the people that live in the city. But as things started to get worse, all of these things started happening, cops killing people and people rioting and people losing their lives. I'm proud of where I work at. I think that we have a formula of creating true professionals, who understand how to police in the inner city, because it's different if you police in a white town. It's totally different. So
why?
So then how long is this show?
We got time. We can get to that. We can come back to that.
So that made me say, you know what? I'm going to start telling people exactly the city that I work at. So I do work in Plainfield, New Jersey. Growing up, I was probably the last person that you would have thought that would have become a police officer. I grew up from a family that grew up in poverty. We were very poor. Domestic violence, substance abuse was so present in my household. Would constantly go to sleep hearing the screams of my mother.
Wow.
So initially it wouldn't be someone who you would think would be a cop. Wow. I got involved in the music business as a child. I had an opportunity to get on a television show, and that was going great. I was in the music business from the time that I was 12 till I was about 29 to 30. Had records out, videos, all of that kind of stuff. But in those years, several things happened that changed my life. One was 9/11. 9/11. I can remember sitting home and watching the TV and just feeling so helpless. And for a man that's I think that the way that my father brought us up, me and my brothers, we're natural protectors. So for a person that's a natural protector to feel helpless, it's a sad feeling. So that was one thing. And then but probably the biggest thing that affected my life was when my oldest brother, Abdul Rahim, was killed by a police officer.
Wow.
Now at this time I wasn't a cop. I was working for the county government, and it was definitely something that could have been avoided. It's not like he was in a situation where he was holding a knife to someone's neck or something like it. It wasn't like that. So that's why I say that I'm the last person that people would have thought that would be a cop.
Right.
For several years after my brother was murdered, I couldn't watch cops on TV. I could barely visit my family in Maryland, because anytime that I saw a patrol car from that town, it was like the monster wanted to come out.
Yeah.
So So it took a lot of things to get me to where I am. And then my younger brother, he was murdered.
Wow.
Not by a cop, but, you know, involved in things that go on in the streets.
Right.
And you know, that crushed my family to its core.
Wow.
You know, and that was the last straw. You know, I truly felt like, listen, I need to get in and be able to do things myself. You know, like, how can I fix this? I can't just sit back and, you know, and do nothing. You know, so I told my wife, I was like, listen, I'm going to become a cop. She's like, you crazy?
I know that's the first response, right? After everything you've been through.
Like,
You
really?
know, so, and I had family members that were like, you know, I mean, I talk about it in the book that where some of them called me a traitor. You know, it was like, how could you become a cop and a cop killed your brother?
Yeah.
You know, so but my thing is that you can't generalize a group of people by the actions of 1, 2, 3, even 15.
Right.
You know, so my intention was to bring my reality to policing, and that's where I am right now in my life. I police the city. I love the city that I work in. I also teach at the police academy. So now I'm in a position to shape young police officers.
Right.
You know, when in any given day, when I'm at the police academy teaching, I could be standing in front of 50, 60, 100 recruits. A lot of those recruits, probably 60, 70% of them are white. You know, so now you got somebody, a man of color, teaching them about us.
Which is essential.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you know,
Absolutely.
and the sistership, we're very much about diversity.
Right.
Because that which we don't understand, we tend to fear. And if fear teaches us to do some crazy things in life. So it's so important, and that's why the sistership, we're a very diverse population of women in age and cultural backgrounds. Because when we get to learn about each other, we can embrace each other back. And when we learn that we are so much alike, that, you know, wow, you say, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. You know, and it helps to change, I think, people's mindset to understand one another better.
There's the human element, right? Because first and foremost, you're human, right? And I think then you got, you know, everybody's like, well, he's black, he's white, and whatever. Then you got the race component, right? So I think back to what Mama C was saying, like, for us, we're all different and diverse in many different areas, culturally, our experiences. But you have to learn from everybody's experience to understand
Absolutely.
how you work with individuals and why they feel the way they feel, you know, and what they've experienced. So go ahead, because, you know, the fact that you are actually now standing and teaching, because to your point, you know, you're someone who wants to help others, right? You want to be in a position where you can change people's mindset, and, you know, you became an officer because you wanted to have an impact on people's lives in a positive way.
Yes. But like I said, that's where I am now. I was talking to my man before we came in here, and I told him that in March made 25 years for me in the pension system. So in essence, I could be retired. In March, I could have left. You know, but I love the work that I do.
Right.
You know, I was talking to one of my coworkers, and cops are no different than any profession. Right. You know, you get people that get burnt out. You get people that come to work that hate their job, that don't want to be there.
Right.
You know, so now, you know, you picture a guy or girl who's, you know, they got a gun. They have different tools on their belts that can take away someone's life and liberty in a second. You know, and now you add the stress of, I hate being here.
Oh,
that's
you know,
the worst.
I talked to one of my coworkers, and he was telling me that that's where he is.
Wow.
You know, so, and I said, thank God that I'm not there. I said, but if I ever get there, I said, you're going to see my desk empty, bro.
Yeah.
I said, because I'm never going to bring that baggage to work.
Absolutely.
Never.
Absolutely.
You know, so, but like I said, I love my job. You know, I thank God for putting me in this position.
And I think that's key, to love what you do.
Right.
You know, because it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like a calling that you know that you have to respond to in a very positive way.
Right.
So kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I think you made an important point, and that is, you know, again, if you are in a position of, you know, and I'll say power to a certain degree, because you do
It is
have
power.
It is power, right? And if you're in a position where you are coming in angry, stressed, all these things, all these elements in your personal life that you're bringing into work, the impact it has on the public
Of course.
is I mean, you could traumatize a whole community.
Oh, absolutely. And when you have power, what we do with power sets the tone for other people around us,
Right.
or for our communities, or for life in general. So, people think that when they have power, they can do anything they want to. Ultimately, you have to remember that what goes around comes around. And sooner or later, what you do to other people is going to happen to you in some way. And I have found in my 67 years that if you don't do the right thing, what happens in return is even worse than what you did. So I'm not trying to get a whooping from God and the universe. Okay, I'm too old and I don't take whippings well anymore.
Neither do
I learned the lessons I was supposed to get, and I realized that we are human beings who are here to love and support one another, and that's how I live my life. And if I can't live that quality of life with other people, like I said, I leave them alone. I move away from them because I don't choose to be that kind of person. And negative energy is always contagious. So is positive energy. But negative energy can take you to places that you wonder, how the heck did I get here?
I tell you, just quickly, just to speak on what you said, talking about power. One of the things that I teach the recruits is that I try to break down something that law enforcement creates. And it's something that I dubbed the Superman complex. They put you in the police academy. You know what I mean? They grab you, they put you in the police academy. They teach you these laws. They teach you what you can and can't do. They get you in a peak physical condition. You feel like the best you've ever been. And they basically tell you that you can go out and pretty much do anything. Like now, recently things have changed, but I'm talking about when I was in the academy and years before. And then they throw you in the streets. And you're out there and your chest is sticking out and you think that your ish don't stink. You feel like Superman. So what I try to tell those people is that we have to deflate that.
Right.
I said this is one of the things that I'm trying to teach you.
Yeah.
Is that you got to kill that. You are the same as the people that you police.
Right.
Another thing that you spoke of, one of you guys said fear. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. How can you police the people if you're afraid of them?
Oh, Lord, please tell me.
Isn't that the truth? And
speak on that.
So much has happened as a result of fear. I think a lot of the killings of black people is because they're afraid of us. And so many of us know how to exhibit our power, and there are people who think they should be more powerful, and so when they see you and they see our power, that frightens them even more, so they're more likely to shoot than to try and connect. And that's sad. That's really a sad a state of being to be in. So I always tell people that the only purpose for fear is to warn us when we're in danger. If you are afraid of something, get to understand it, and you might find that will begin to alleviate your fear.
So to me, what I'm hearing, it's some type of conditioning, right? And I feel like it's almost like the military. They break you down to build you back up to this
their way.
Their way, right? And then you have to take that and decouple it because you have to go now out into society. And without that badge, without that gun, without all those elements, you are just a person walking down the street, just like anybody else is.
Right.
And that's what I think, the some of the issues, and to your point, the fear factor. I mean, that's the other thing. And I love what you're doing with, the educational piece about, you have to teach people about people, all different types of people, inner city. And to your point, I mean, you said it, and it was funny because I wrote that in the promo. It's depending on where you live, policing is different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember as a child, I lived in Passaic Park. Passaic Park, there was a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood. For the most part, we had a couple black families and Jewish families, and we had an Arabic family. We had all it was a little diverse, but not as diverse as kind of going as Passaic, right? And you never saw a cop. Never saw a cop. Where you see them? Right at the park, because we live right down up the street from the park. They were at the park because guess where everybody's going? To the park, right, to hang out or whatever.
That park that you're talking about is the first time I ever got called a nigga.
Really?
That park that she's talking about.
Wow.
We was in that park playing basketball. You know, and Passaic Park is different. You know,
Yeah.
Passaic is multicultural. It's more
That's right.
Latinos. It's more blacks. You know, but we would go to that park to play basketball.
Right.
You know, so I'm looking at the cat. I'm like, but they were in a car.
No, of course.
You know, and they kind of kept it moving.
Yeah,
Of
of course.
You know, so, but it's definitely different
Cowards.
where you police at.
Yeah.
It's definitely different where you police at. I think that people need to understand. Like, here's a quick example. I said, like, I know my people. I'm not afraid of my people. Like,
Right.
certain things, like, say you take a white cop who grew up in a white town. Say he went to college, he or she went to college for 4 years. Say they went to American University in D.C. 85, 90% white.
Right.
You know, so most of the time they were around people that look just like them, act just like them, have the same background they have.
Right.
You know, they go to the police academy, 23 weeks. Here you go. Now we'll drop you off in Newark. Drop you off in Patterson. Now you got a police. Now,
Culture
sometimes
shock.
Yeah, that's
Culture
just
shock.
the way that we people of color walk, the way that we do things.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
totally
It's
different.
It's like we take it differently. It's like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? That's his natural ditty
Right.
bop. That don't, you know. But for someone else, it's like, oh, he was trying to make a furtive move. No, he wasn't. B. That's he just cool. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it's just
No, you're right.
It's totally different. Like
Yeah.
that's why I've been in hundreds of armed encounters. Hundreds.
Wow.
That's why I gotta jump in and put my 2 cents in.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead,
Oh,
man.
Terry. Wait, Terry, before you start, I want to say, I forgot to say this, and I want to make sure people have an opportunity to call in if they have comments or questions. Call in 888-304-4401. We're open for any questions or comments if anybody wants to call in. But go ahead, Terry.
Everything that you said is exactly why I hate the police. I grew up hating the police. You know, and till this day, I hate the police. You know, because we have nothing in common. You know, and you just clarified something for me: the difference between the modern day black police officer from the latter day black police officer. Because in most cases, my experience with the black police officer, he was worse than the white police officer. Can you agree,
Can I go to my notes real quick?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
go right
ahead.
All right. The first thing I want to I recognize was you brought your reality to policing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so and then you spoke on like power and authority, fear, anxiety, anger. You know what I'm saying? All right, so you have people that, that's in the culture, civilians, never been locked up, never been incarcerated, right? They have that hate the police mentality. They grow that way. So transitioning, coming from prison, you have 2 kinds of conditionings. I overheard you speaking to the DJ outside, right? You said you was with this guy that was, you know what I'm saying? He was going through some troubles, and you lost contact after a while. All right, so for me, from what I see as far as community is concerned, first of all, I believe the community police themselves, you know, a lot of the times. The communication level, you know, if you have a Caucasian officer, he's in Newark, like you said, he's afraid automatically. Fear, anger, you know what I'm saying? And there is, once they don't get that initial response that they're supposed to get, things change. Another thing, like I was talking to my girl, I think 2 days ago. It's kind of like impossible for me to understand how an officer could put his knee on a human being.
Yeah.
Let's not talk race. Let's do human being on their neck. You know, Breonna Taylor case, same kind of vibe for me. It was like, you know, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of curriculum are they getting that they're, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of.
I don't think just to touch on what he said, it's not like clearly every situation is an individual situation,
Right.
But it's not the personal curriculum that they're getting, it's that person. Like in
Yeah.
order for you to put your knee on somebody's neck, it's not that you were taught that, it's that you got the devil inside
You
you.
got you filled
Yeah.
with
You
the
know what I'm
devil.
saying?
Yeah.
You evil. It doesn't
just
make a
evil.
difference if you were a cop, if you were an EMT, if you worked bagging people's groceries at the store, you're evil. But as a cop, you're in a position where you can really hurt people. So it's not so much because probably I don't know the laws of Minnesota. I don't know, their police training commission, the way that they, if they get the same thing that we get.
Right.
That's
Right.
excuse
You
me.
know,
That's
right.
another thing. Pardon me for cutting you off.
No, that's good.
That's cliche though. Like, pardon me for cutting you off.
That's okay.
That's the thing. Like, so now you have different laws in different states.
Right.
How does that work?
Yeah.
Like, you understand?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's
I
difficult.
can take it to the
yeah.
heights of the Constitution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take it to the heights of the Constitution. A lot of us are ignorant to that, to the laws that's going on with the Constitution. So if you have laws in different states, then they go by these laws in different states. That means that people are being meshed and molded in a certain way to follow certain rules, right? Obligations. Okay.
I think that's and that might be the disparity based on
Excuse me.
where. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
here like this is it for me, right? You're a black man, I'm a melanated man, carbonized man. Right? We're sitting across from this table. You had two brothers from your bloodline murdered, and you became a police officer. I've had, childhood friends murdered. I'll go to a park every day. I haven't been in this park for at least 20 years. And one of my friends got murdered at 16 years old at the high school there. The first time I walked past, I was like, man, this is crazy. I haven't been here in 20 years, right? So, but on my end is like, on my side of things, is like at first, when I started thinking about practicing law, studying law, I more so, once I started learning certain things, became knowledgeable, I became angry. Real angry, because it's like, man, we're going by these policies, these codes, these regulations, and majority of this stuff is like, it's kind of like fluff. It's real, but it's fluff as well. You know what I'm saying? An officer will, no disrespect, but an officer will bend his rule, bend his law by how he approaches the person. Let's say a regular police stop, just because of the complexion, right? Just because of the complexion. I've been through that too also, where he thought he saw me. He said he thought he saw me put my phone. I was texting on my phone. I'm coming from a different perspective here. So, all right, so automatically I knew, like, no, I watched you. It's the same way you watched me. Those are the things I feel like you really shouldn't be like pinpointed, or you know what I mean? I don't know the exact words I'm looking for, but it's like, man, that's kind of crazy, because that's what breeds the whole I hate police, I dislike police, or NWA, fuck the police. You know what I'm saying? But I told somebody in the park the other day, like, yo, you got to think about it. What about that woman that's getting beat and she's afraid to call the police? Because that'll be snitching. You think what I'm saying? So you have this guy that's knowing that she's not going to snitch because she has to keep that code, but she's getting beat. So we go through like a hypocrisy. You know what I mean? It's like a double-edged sword. So, in
other words, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't.
Yeah. I'm sure that, and I've heard that before, where people say, I'm not going to rely on the police, or I'm not going to call the police because if I do, so-and-so might get killed. It's happened, we've seen it. Or, I'm afraid to call them because, you know, so and so will get locked up or get beat up by the police or whatever have you. And I think it's, again, it goes back to the code of conduct of an officer, and, you know, how they use that when they have their traffic stops or whatever the case may be, right? And I mean, I think to your point, it's, you know, if somebody's doing like the knee and the neck, that is the devil. There's something wrong with you. That's pure evil. And to your point, he could have been having one of those days where he was like, I don't even want to be here, but guess what? This is what I'm going to do.
Right.
You know, because I have the power to do that. I mean, that's, you know, that's a scary thing to think about. But I think, again, going back to your, the training that you're doing, I think it's important. And I think to your point, it's, you know, there's such a disparity based on, you know, different laws or different trainings depending on what state, what city, what municipality. I mean, it should be consistent across. There shouldn't be any variation there, because law is law, you know, and you need to follow. But
this is America, so we know.
But this is America, so we know.
It's not, you know what I mean? You know, I'm in a position to do what I can do. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I can't, unless someone reads my book and sees something in it in California,
Right.
In Vermont, you know, and says, wow, you know, I'm going to do this. You know, I can't affect physical change there.
Right.
I can affect physical change where I
you
am,
are.
where
That's
I am,
right.
and for the people that are in front of me.
Yep.
You know, I tell the recruits that I teach, I was like, you're looking at a finished product. I said, I wasn't like this when I came, when I first came on the job. Because I came, like you said, I brought my reality policing. You got a guy whose brother was killed by a cop, whose brother was killed for being in a game, a guy was raised poor, and now I'm in a position to stop people from hurting others. You know, when I first got to the city, all I wanted to do was try to put bad guys in jail. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing I wanted to do. You know, but then it took time for me to see, and I learned from people. You know, I learned from the people in the city, and it started to change me as a person.
Absolutely.
You
And
know?
I think
I'm trying to get them there faster than I was.
And that's so important. And, you know, one of the notes I kind of jotted down was transformation of police departments, their role and relationship to our communities requires a change in culture, accountability, training, policies, and practices. And so the bottom line to this, who does this? We have to come into these modalities and bring with us the knowledge of us to those people who have no clue about us and have been taught to be afraid of us as people of color. So, you know, we have to do this. We can't expect that transformation is going to automatically happen and that white police officers are going to automatically start loving us, or black police officers, because it's all about the state of mind that a person is in that determines their reaction to us and their behavior to us. So we got to look at it. We have to become a part of these systems so that people who have not been a part of our lives and our culture and the way we do things can say, hey, wow, he's kind of cool, you know, and then maybe ask other questions. But we can't expect that change is going to take place without us stepping in and helping these changes to happen in the police department, in our communities, and everything, you know, in every aspect of life.
Let me ask you, do you in what town was it again? You're in Plainfield. The police, so when I think back to like the 70s when we were born, you know, I think back to policing in the communities as the people who lived in the communities policed the communities, right? There were officers who lived there, knew the people, you know, and I mean, you know, but your parents, friends could be cops or whatever have you, and that changed over time where you're having people, and I think even this goes back to schooling and a bunch of other things as far as city is concerned. And Haledon, Haledon, Plainfield. I'm all over, and
You're all over that
I'm all
area.
I'm all over New Jersey right now. Are cops part of the community, like live in the community, or are
Yes.
they from the outside?
Yes.
Okay.
When you first get hired, you have to when you get sworn in, you have to be a resident of the city.
Okay.
After you get sworn in, I don't know how much time passes, but you can move out of the city. I also think that's very important. The fact that I lived in that city
Right.
before I became a cop. My kids went to school in that city. So when I got on the job, and I'm coming home in my uniform, and then the next day, I just helped the narcotics do a search warrant, hit a door, lock some people up. The next day, I go to my kid's school for parent-teacher conference, and I'm sitting right next to maybe one of the guys that was detained in the house, but what that does, having someone who's from the community, or who at least who cares about the community,
Right.
because it's not, there's some people that think that you have to live in the city to police the city right. I'm gonna give you a quick story, and neither of these cops are black. It was something that happened in our city. Me as a detective, I get an opportunity to watch body cam footage if there's anything that I need to investigate. And it was a pursuit that was after a homicide. Someone was killed in a car. So guys ran. It was a Hispanic guy and a black guy. Black guy runs up into this house. He runs all the way to the 3rd floor. He goes out on the roof. He's standing 3 stories up on the edge of this roof. There's nowhere for him to go. So a cop comes out, a white police officer, comes out, takes his gun out. Now, this person that died got hit in a car. There was no weapons involved and nothing. But this cop drew his gun. Don't move! I'm watching the body cam footage, and the dude looked crazy. Don't move!
Wow.
That's
so scary.
This guy's on the roof.
Yeah, where's he gonna
there's
go?
nowhere for him to
Right.
go. Nowhere for him to go.
Wow.
So the last thing that you need as a tool is your gun.
Right.
The next cop out the window was also white. He was somebody who worked in the streets, more so than this other guy did.
Right.
And he didn't reach for his weapon at all. He didn't even address the guy who was running. He addressed the cop. He said, "Man, put your damn gun away." Put your gun away. The dude put his gun away. He told him to come back, and then he just talked to the guy. Hey, man.
Talk them down.
Yeah. Listen, you come over here, put these cuffs on you, and we'll sort this thing out.
Wow.
So it's not always race.
Right.
A lot of times it is.
Yeah.
But it's not always race. Like I said, it goes back to what's inside of you.
What's in your
inside
heart?
of you. When he said that, some of the black cops when he was young were worse than the white cops. It took me back to when I was a kid to watching Boys in the Hood. You remember that scene when the cops stopped Trey and Doughboy when they were little, and the black cop was worse than the white dude.
cop.
You know what I'm saying? And you never forget that.
Right.
You
That's
never
true.
ever forget that. Luckily, when I grew up in Elizabeth, we didn't have money. There wasn't people on our street that had a bunch of money. We were a low class people. A lot of the people were on welfare. But you know what? The cops didn't come in our neighborhood. The only time the cops came in our neighborhood was if something bad happened. Like really bad. We didn't see them driving through. They weren't messing with us. There was something called the PAL League. So if you played sports, that's where you kind of fraternized with the cops.
Right.
They were your coaches.
Right.
So it was different for me growing up. Now I look at where I police, like it's sections that's the projects where the cops are there all the time. These kids see the cops all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're not the cop that's saying, "Yo man, how you doing? How's school?" Then all they see is that uniform.
Right.
Right.
That's all they see.
Right.
So it's just a lot different. And I'm just trying to, like I said, I can only control what I can control.
Absolutely.
I mean, you made a good point, because I think it is, it's all about, and I talk about policing in communities because to me, community is really interacting with the people in your community, knowing the people in your community,
Absolutely.
understanding the people in your community, building relationships with people in
Gaining
your
a
community.
level of trust.
Gain that level of trust,
Right.
right? And that goes both ways, cop as well as civilian. And I think that's, to me personally, I think that's lacking quite a bit in some communities, in most communities.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think, that's why I was saying about, like back in the day, we had cops who lived, in the communities. They got to know, they grew up, they went to school with the same, people.
Important.
It's important because how are you supposed to truly do your job effectively if you don't understand the people that you are policing?
Absolutely.
Because to your point, there shouldn't be a reason for a cop to go anywhere unless there's something going on, unless there's an issue, whatever it is, whether it be selling drugs or somebody's getting shot at, somebody's getting beaten, a mother's getting beaten or a child's getting beaten or whatever have you. I mean, again, you have to develop these relationships with people in the community, and I think that's lacking in a big way.
Oh, absolutely.
In a big way.
Absolutely. And Ugg, I think you have a very interesting story to share that we'd like you. I've heard little snippets of the here and there, but I always like to hear it from the horse's mouth, as they say. I want the person to tell their story. Sometimes when people try and tell our story, they get it all twisted.
You got
all
that right.
Twisted,
That's why I don't tell nobody's story but mine.
Yeah, hello. I can tell my story because I'm always telling it from the heart.
Right.
So, I'd like you to share your story with us.
As far as what?
Wherever, start wherever. I don't even want to give you a point to start. With respect to policing and how you feel about what it is we need to do as a people collectively together.
Right.
And
because that's where we need to get. We need to.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Where do you stand there?
We went through a universal culture shock. Like, there was things implemented and put in place globally that's amazing. Like the pandemic, people actually came out of it more self-sufficient. But one of y'all said healing. You said
Healing. Before
you came into this, you did the healing work and hope that people can get to where you were or the potential of it. I did a panel because I wanted to talk to the community first, not like a community where it's like, these people in the chat, they were like, I want to say ratchet, but hood, and I couldn't keep them on topic. It was like, man, like they weren't staying on the topic where we talking about police brutality. I wanted to know what kind of questions did they want to ask. And they veered. So is we have to start with word. We have to start with language. Like you said, this guy pulled out his this officer pulled out his pistol first. The language is already broken. So you're already gonna have anger and fear on both sides of the coin.
Right.
So as far as the culture is concerned, it's like healing. But you said story-wise. I've studied. And it's amazing how, things are implemented in the system that have 40-year gaps between generations. So generations will not hear you, but they'll be on point at the same time. I know no capital letters, they know no capping. You know what I'm saying? Just different degrees of things. I'll brush a little bit upon more science, but that's not the platform for this. I don't think, we could, but I think that's a whole nother segment, because the name of the book is, what's the name of your book? Overseer. We call them policy officers. I've actually saw on my birthday, I saw a code enforcement car. It said code enforcement. I pointed it out like, yo, look at this car.
Like, what the heck?
Yeah, it wasn't a regular police car. It was a code enforcement car.
Yeah, what does that mean? I
don't know if you know that, but what I saw from it was they're
Code
They're-
enforcement.
yeah, they're basically like they know that some people know there's codes, policies, regulations, and there's law, right? Because I looked up this word. I looked in the Black Laws Dictionary and it said due process of law. Before that whole case, we said how I said it, the Chevers case.
Chauvin.
Chavez.
Okay. Probably like 6 months before, I looked up the word due process of law, and the definition was amazing to me because it's like once you kill somebody, you know, that's it. So I couldn't understand how the next question I had was, you know, are police officers really killing black people? And everybody around me was like, what are you talking about? It's been happening for centuries. Well, we need to try to figure out why has it been happening for centuries. You know, that's where we really start healing. Like, why is that's like a norm, not it's been more so lately. Seemed like it happened around election time and all of that. Like, it was trying to, you know, but no disrespect. Like that's just disrespectful, you know. So, you know, for me, I if it's been going on for centuries, I can't understand. Like, how is that possible? You know, and one more thing, like you have codes, you have agricultural codes that say black people are better off being soiled, you know, and this is in our, you know, the policies. This is in there, you know, this is in the agricultural codes actually. So it's like, why would they state something like that and we're labeling ourselves that? You understand? So we already, just by word and sound, we're already depreciating ourselves, even though we've made black a very, very powerful word, you know, but it's not our nationality. And if officers go by codes, they're going to go by their codes. They're going to go by their law. You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of, for me, I want to say me personally, I would love to build with the community from that aspect of being able to structure them up, to be able to know when they're getting stopped, not to have that anger or that rage, or because I hear the F the why you stop, oh, they puff themselves up, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we should be able to hold a conversation. We should be able to communicate. We should be able to communicate if you stop me and I ask you and I know how you're supposed to stop me and why you can't stop me, or you understand? So that's what I would.
I gotta add one more 2 cents. There was one police officer, that law enforcement officer, that was always all right with me. That's my partner, Rud. only police officer that was ever all right with me.
Well, now you're gonna have another one, Eli.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate what he said.
I get
you know
it.
what I mean?
Right. But you know what? Going back to what you were saying and that word healing.
Yeah.
That is a powerful word. And that's what we have to start doing, is healing. You know, I came from a very dysfunctional childhood. I had to grow through it. I had to get through it and then grow through it in order to be the woman I am today. I think there are so many different degrees of emotional pain. And so recognizing that is important. And I'm going to go back to something I heard in church one day. And I'm first of all, I'm a spiritualist. I don't do religions of any kind. I've tried a few, but none of them made sense to me. I think it's so important to understand that hurting people hurt people. They're hurting. They don't know how to deal with their pain. And so that pain comes out in a very aggressive manner. So I think we have to find a way, and that's part of the work that I do. Healing work is what I do. And, you know, I find that for those who are willing, not everyone's willing to heal, because the pain, the roots of their pain has grown so deep into the soil of their soul that they're not even willing to consider that they're hurting. You know, they don't want to accept that they are in pain. But that aggression that has taken hold of them shows very prominently when they are put in a situation where they now become fearful. So I think amongst us, and I say this to my daughter and other people a number of times, the post-slavery syndrome is alive and well in everybody. I don't care what color you are, what culture you are. It has affected us all to some degree.
Yeah,
So,
excuse me. It had
go
to.
ahead.
It had to. Like
It had
when you're in public school and they tell you that you were a different complexion and went through all of these things, you're gonna look around the room and be like, wait a minute. It starts from there.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
feed us the fear. They feed us the so it starts from there.
They feed us the negativity that we take on, and then without having the ability, because first of all, let's remember that the human brain does not fully mature to age 25, and for some a little later. So if you don't have the ability to process what's going on in your life and then digest it in a way that you can weed out the garbage and you're taking in the garbage, then as you grow and evolve, the situation is only going to get worse. So I think in our own homes, we have to begin in our own homes. And I think there are too many hurting people raising children. And, I got a piece of hair in my mouth. Oh, what the heck?
Bringing that in.
Yeah. So, you know what? We really have to begin the process of healing in our homes and then take it beyond, outside of our homes, so that we can be the examples, because a lot of people don't know what it looks like to be healed and happy. It doesn't
That's
mean
huge.
that everything is hunky-dory, because
Yeah.
you're still going to have to deal with issues and things that go on around you. But how do you deal with them?
Yeah.
Do you deal with them in anger, or do you deal with them in a whole different way?
And I mean, that's one of the, so when we talk about, again, community and so there's two facets of it, right? You
Right.
have the law enforcement, you have the civilians community. And there's things that we civilians, I'll say just for lack of a better word, civilians need to
Right.
be doing.
Right.
And there's the law enforcement aspect, right?
Right.
And to your point, hurt people, right? So you've got right now civilians that are like, we don't trust the police, right? And then you got some of the police that are saying, well, now they're talking about defunding the police and doing this and doing that. And so I want to talk about, because this subject we could go on literally for
Forever.
a couple shows.
Couple of shows.
How do we get past? How do we start working on enabling ourselves to be, work together as civilians and law enforcement together? And where does it start? Because, I'll say for Pennsylvania, just quickly, because I was just reading up on this, the Wolf administration, they launched a database now to help weed out potential red flags for any candidates of
Police candidates. Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if that's effective anywhere else, but I know in Pennsylvania that was, we live in Pennsylvania, so that's immediately, I was like, wow, this is kind of a start. But I get it, because you need to weed out people who are going to be in a position of power that could potentially hurt people. But at the same token, we also need to look at it from a civilian aspect and understand, what do people really understand law, and how do we get them to trust the good cops, the people who are really out here doing the right thing to protect. That's what they're here for.
I think that no matter what you do, there are going to be some people that won't trust. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? You're not going to convince everybody.
Right.
But I think that there's and I can only speak for my reality. I can only speak for what I see in my city and the city that I grew up in.
Right.
And I was having conversation with one of my close brothers who's a retired detective from the city that I work in.
Right.
But we both grew up in Elizabeth. He's several years older than me, and he told me, he said, do you know why I'm not a cop in Elizabeth, the town that we grew up in? He said, do you know why this person isn't a cop? He said back then, their hiring practices, like they could block certain people. Like here, this guy was a star athlete. Everybody in the city knew this guy. You know, he had family members that were in the street, but to me, that makes you a better cop.
Yeah, because you understand what's
you know.
Yeah.
So they were able to block them. Like, nope, we're not hiring this guy. We're not hiring this guy. Now, fast forward several years, I can say that in the city that I work in, I've seen it change just in the time that I've been on the force. When I first came on, the hiring process was, I was explaining this to someone the other day. In New Jersey, there's kind of two different ways that you can get on the police department. You have some towns that are chiefs towns. A chief town is say if you're the chief of police and I'm your friend. You like, you know what? I'm going to hire you as a cop. And you're hired.
Wow.
Then they send you to the academy. You know what I'm saying? So it's very easy to get on a chief's town.
Wow.
That's why when you look at some of these chiefs towns, you'll see the same names. Father, son, nephew. It's very easy, you know, to keep it in the
Nepotism.
family.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but other cities, like the city that I work in, it's civil service. So you have to take a test.
Right.
You know, so now you take this test and you cross off, you know, what you're interested in, municipal police, park police, whatever, and then you get placed basically on where you scored on the test. So so you could be sitting on this long list, and you know, I don't know how admin bureaus break that down on, you know, they tell us that it's by numbers, you know, 1, 2, whatever, they're going to hire so many people. But now in the city where I work, we are a part of the hiring process. Like when they find a candidate, say if they say we're hiring 20, so they're going to look at the list, they're going to pull 30 names, they're going to start to do their backgrounds, the initial background. And then when they realize those 20 people that they're going to hire, they assign a detective to do the investigation.
Wow.
To do the background investigation, to talk to their family, to find out their do's and don'ts, to sit with them in a room and see what you feel when you're in a room with them. You know, like if you sitting there across from this cat, you're like, this dude is nuts.
Yeah.
You can write that. You know what I'm saying? So it's different. Like
So
we
it's almost
have,
like your peers.
we have a hand in.
Right.
At least in my city, like I
Peer
said,
assessment.
I can't speak for other cities, but we have a hand in the police that we bring on. You know, in Plainfield, we just hired 10 people, and it's a beautiful class. You know what I'm saying? We got Latinas, we got, you know what I'm saying, more women than we normally do.
Right.
You know, we got one guy, you know, I can't really say names, but you know, I told him when I spoke to him personally, I said, I see myself in you. You know, because his family was the bad people in the city. You know, I said, if I tried to become a cop in Passaic, they would have been like, get out of here, because they knew my brother was a criminal. You know, so now I could say that there are things that are moving in the right direction. You know, and I think it starts with retraining police officers.
Right.
You know, the right way. More multicultural training so that they understand about like you can't, I think you can't intimately police the people if you don't know them.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, and you got to know them intimately, not like, yeah, I got a black friend.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You know, like you have to
Have
know
you been
them.
to the cookout?
Yeah. You know what I mean? You eat potato salad. You know what I mean? You know, so I think that it starts there.
Yeah.
You know, when you're just talking about what do we do? How do we help? You know, and real quick, I was talking to a woman in the hood the other day, right? I was in the projects, and me and her were talking. Her son was charged up for something, for a very violent crime. So I know this woman very well. So we're just talking. And she said something to me that kind of touches on what you guys said, and also what brother over here, Ugg, said. Talking about hurt. She said, and I don't know what made her say this. She said PTSD. She said, man, everybody in this project has
PTSD. Yes.
Absolutely.
She said because of the way that we live, because of what we see.
Right.
You know, so now you take people that are hurt. You know what I'm saying? You take people that are hurt, that aren't healed up themselves. It's been hundreds and hundreds of years put on these people, you know, and we're not healed. And then now all of a sudden they're aggressive.
Yep.
And then you meet the aggression of a cop coming at them the wrong way. That's just a very bad formula.
That is the formula for disaster. You know, in 2010, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, for people who don't know. And one of the things I did, and it stemmed from my childhood. I had a very difficult childhood, you know, sexually molested, raped, all of that. But I didn't want to live the pain of that for the rest of my life. So at 19, I started the healing work by sharing
The experiences.
the experiences. And I have to say that my girlfriend I shared it with made me laugh so hard. I didn't, be careful who you share your pain with. I think that's very important. Because if you're sharing that pain with somebody else whose pain is even worse than yours, the response could be devastating. And so you close up and you never talk about it again. But yet it's eating you up alive. So I think it's so very important to understand what some of these diagnoses we receive means. I did the research, and I wasn't diagnosed with PTSD until I was, I must have been about 52. And when I did the research to understand what I needed to do to heal and help myself even further, I realized I cannot be in stressful situations, because stressful situations caused me to have anxiety attacks. I ended up last year in the emergency room because I had a situation happen to me that very unexpected. I thought I was having a heart attack, but when they did all of the testing, the doctor came back and said to me, "We can't find anything."
Panic attack.
It was that it was in that moment that I realized that the situation had caused me to have a serious anxiety attack. So we have to begin to not just accept diagnoses, but what does that mean? What is it I have to do? So I remove myself from negative people, negative situations, stressful situations. I have to limit my stress, because going back to my childhood, if I continued to feed on all that pain, I'd be a basket case. You know what I'm saying? So we do have to take responsibility for ourselves. We have to realize when there's something wrong and seek the help we need. Fine. And the internet, oh my God, I found out everything. Like when a woman told me I was an empath, I was like, I'd never heard that before. I have an empathic personality. Yes, okay, now that I understand what that is, I know that I have to protect myself even more, because I'm a giver. I'm very compassionate of other people. So I think that we really, really need to start taking some responsibility for ourselves. If we're hurting, we're hurting. You know when you're hurting. You may not want to accept it. You want to, but I just want to be normal. What is normal? Okay, you have to understand what normal is for you and what works for you, and begin to segue onto the path of things that are healing and helpful in your growth as a human being, a member of the human family.
Yeah, and to your point, the PTSD piece, because again, she spoke her reality, right? I mean, every day I'm dealing with something in this,
and all kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that will put you in a position of stress and all those pieces. But
that's right.
I guess my other question is, on the flip side, with law enforcement, you guys are also dealing with stressful situations, crime happening, whether you're going to come home one night or not. Those are things that, how are you guys, how do you deal with those things? Like, how are you managing through those elements? Because that's got to be a little PTSD as well at some point, right? As you're dealing with those stresses.
Right.
And once again, this is an individual thing. Like, I don't know how every police department does, but our department has been good to, in reaction to, if something happens, they try to address it and set up something to where that it'll be beneficial for us. Like when the when George Floyd was murdered, and people were
up and
rioting
and stuff like that. They had a protest in our city. So they had all of these meetings, for state police saying, oh, they're thinking it might be 1,000 people, like, could be this, it could be that. And so the day of the briefing, we're all, even the guys, when I go to work, I either dress like this or with a shirt and tie every day. But everybody had on a uniform. So we all were in uniform. And I looked around the room, and these cats were scared. I mean, guys who I had been in armed encounters with, guys that were shooting and it was guns. These guys, you would think, all of the tattoos and chew and all that. They were scared. They were afraid. And I had conversation with one of the guys, and he was a white cop. And I said, man, what's wrong with you? He said, I've never been this afraid in my life.
Wow.
You know, and I said, what are you afraid of? I said, what are you afraid of? Like, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid because I didn't feel, number one, I felt like I knew my people. You know, and I said, I don't think the people in this city are going to riot against their own city.
Right.
I said, if they want to scream out, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what we should do.
Right.
You know, and we should be there to allow them to do that.
Right.
But I didn't feel scared because I didn't think that they would, you know, try to target the police or anything like that. You know, so there are things in place that we're trying to get those guys to, you know, feel more comfortable or whatever. But at the same time, you know, this is something that people on the bottom, you know, people of color, brown people, black people, have been dealing with a very long time. You know what I'm saying? A very long time.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm really more concerned with me personally. What can I do?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, what can I do?
Right.
I can try to educate cops so that they don't be those guys that, you know, have their knee on somebody's neck killing them. So they don't be those guys or girls that talk down to somebody when there's no need to.
When there's no need to.
You know, trying to be that person to investigate my cases justly. Because that's another thing that as a cop you have the power to take someone's freedom away.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know how many people that didn't commit crimes are in prison?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I can remember, this is real quick, a case that I worked when I first got into CIB.
Oh.
All right.
We got
it
a
seems
call
like we have
coming
a
in.
call.
Well,
Hello, caller. Welcome to the Sistahship.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear us?
You're on with the Sistahship.
I tell the call
Yes,
back.
I was just calling into
Oh,
the
you
show.
here?
Okay.
Okay.
What would you like to share with us? Comment, question?
Oh, Deb?
Yes.
That's Jane. Jane, is that you?
Jane! Hey, Jane!
No, I'm loving this. Gentlemen, thank you so much, I want to say first, for the transparency and bringing it to a place where we definitely need to involve our communities more with the police forces. But what I wanted to ask was about the self-care, and I know that you touched on it earlier, but the self-care for police officers, but also the self-care for the communities. I mean, you know, I feel like there needs to be something done hand in hand on both sides for self-care. What do you suggest as a community and as the Sistahship, what we can do in regard to that?
Wow.
So what are your thoughts about?
Well, I think obviously it has to be a joint situation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
It has to be a joint situation. Speaking for cops, you know, a lot of cops they have that hard exterior, you know, and sometimes people don't want to heal. Sometimes people want to stay the way that they are.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if you have someone that's been on the job for a very long time, that's always been in a position of power, you know, that never had to wear a body cam, you know, that was able to operate with impunity in the streets. You know, now you tell them, okay, this is what we're doing. Policing is moving in a different direction.
Right.
You know, now they've got a ton of CIT training, critical incident training, you know, trying to get police officers together with social workers so they can understand that your de-escalation skills are more important than how many push-ups you can do.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
but even still with that, you have a lot of people that, and when I say people, you have a lot of officers that are opposed to it. You know, because they don't want to give up what they know.
What they know.
That
Right.
change.
That
Yeah.
change.
People don't want to change. And that's one of the most important things that we need to do as human beings to evolve to higher levels of understanding and humanitarianism. So I think that change thing is so important, but yet so many people fight it.
It's the control aspect, right? I feel like I'm losing control of what I'm used to.
Right.
But it's so important because things have changed and we found opportunity, right? To your point, the de-escalation. You need to learn how to do that.
Absolutely.
Or else we're going to
Absolutely.
be sitting here talking about more lives that are lost.
Absolutely.
I said to someone, and I had done an interview probably about a month or so ago, and I said, I'm going to put this out there. I said, I know it's going to sound crazy.
I wanted to just share with the officers there that I am a advocate and counselor for domestic violence and sexual assault. Our organization has set up a program which is called LAP, which is a lethology program that the police officers, when they arrive at a domestic violence situation, they assess the situation, they call us at Women's Resources, and we work hand in hand to try to get the victim to safety, along with the evaluation of the police officers as well as ourselves in regard to sheltering. So I'm really proud to say I'm a part of that program in our community.
That's awesome.
Only because what I'm hearing from all of you is that, there's a struggle in regard to it. And I can tell you in our community here, we are trying to really overcome that part of domestic violence and sexual assault in our community with Women's Resources and the police officers. I just did an interesting case with the state police, and I was telling them about that very program, and they were like, oh my gosh, we would love to be a part of a program like that. So I think, everybody's thinking about it, everybody wants to be a part of it and try to, work hand in hand. The problem is the hurdle is, trying to get the right people on board, the judges, the detectives, everyone who needs to make it work, I guess.
Absolutely.
And that's the challenge. That's a big challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it has to come from, to your point, Jane, I mean, it's wonderful that there is that level of working together, for the common goal. But, that's, I think, you have segments of that in different communities, right? But it's not, when you look at the holistic picture, these are little things or tidbits or advice or things that can help bridge the gaps that we have across the nation, right? And I think that's where there's a lot of disparity across the nation on how, what people's thoughts are on how you look at policing communities and working together with communities. Everybody's got a different perspective, but there's never that common thread to say that, and maybe that's the opportunity, is really looking at it like, what's the best solution to kind of work together with the communities? Go ahead, Jane.
To be honest, I think the common thread is, with the pandemic, some good has come out of the need, that we realize now that there is a greater need for it.
Absolutely.
And I sorry to say that a pandemic had to bring us to that.
Right.
And I think people are more aware that there is a greater need than not of this type of community service with the police officers, as well as the social workers and organizations, and just the common person, right? I mean, I think people see things happen now. They whip out their phone and they videotape it, which 5 years ago nobody wanted to be involved. At
Right.
That point.
Right.
Where I think people are more aware now of the fact that we have to all step up, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No matter what,
Absolutely.
we have to all step up to make it better for everyone. And I think the awareness of what you're doing today it's epic, honestly, to bring it to the forefront, to be transparent about it. And so thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for taking this on. It's a difficult subject to talk about, right?
Yeah.
People
Yes, it
don't
is.
They don't want to talk about it. So if they don't talk about it, it
Nothing
doesn't really
changes.
exist.
Right. Nothing changes.
Yeah, and if you don't talk about it, it's like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, but then it only gets worse.
Then it only gets worse.
Yeah, and I know
Exactly.
Jane and I have made a connection to deal with the mental health issue that so many people are experiencing right now. And so I think as part of the Sistahship, and Jane is part of the Sistahship, and all of us understand that the changes that are needing to be taking place now require collaborative connections.
Right.
That we work, no one person, no one group can do it by ourselves. We are very much into forming collaborative connections so that, with like minds, so that we can effect some change.
And I think we've talked about this. Everybody brings something different to the table, something valuable.
Absolutely.
We may not all do the same thing, but we all have the same goal. And I think if we keep that thought, that the end result will be the same, along with everyone else's different talents, we will get there.
Absolutely.
We will get there.
Absolutely.
So
Keep.
thank you.
You're welcome, Jane. Thank you for
Jane.
calling in. All right.
Miss Spicy.
I apologize. I didn't know that she was still on, and I started.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah. All right.
So
Okay.
valuable to hear it.
All right.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
Have a good one.
All right.
She
Bye.
said something that to me, I was like, and I know we have, about, we're down to like 7 minutes or what have you, but that's fine. So let's talk, what I'd like to talk about is, again, we talk about this concept of defunding the police. Negative connotation for some. To me, I think of it as there's areas, and Jane actually brought about how, the police are now coming together with the domestic violence, the women's resources and coming together as a partnership, right, to kind of combat that. But then there's the piece of is mental health for once. So, we spoke about mental health. Now that's something that's difficult. As an officer, do you feel that that's something in a situation that comes up? You're getting a call, somebody's like waving, like naked in the street, waving a knife. Is that something that you feel you should be attending to, or do you feel that you need someone else who has experience with mental illness or that capacity to be able to kind of help as together as a...
I think that if there's a call, if somebody calls 911 and they say, my dad is having a mental episode, he stripped all his clothes off, he's got a baseball bat, I think that should be something that a police officer should deal with. But the thing is that we get training on how to deal with the mental health. Someone that's dealing with mental issues. But once again, it goes back to the individual. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could show up and I can deal with it a totally different way than somebody else would. I watched a video once. It was a cop in North Carolina, and there was a kid that they said was in the middle of the street. He wasn't listening to commands. And get there, and it's a big kid. This kid's 16 years old, but he was huge, 6'3", something like that, black kid. And so he's sitting on the ground. The police officer shows up, white cop, goes over there, sits on the ground with him, and starts having a conversation. Now, someone does what Mama C said, takes his phone out. They take their phone out and they recorded it.
Right.
So this guy, he had it just so happens that kid was autistic. This officer had people that were autistic in his family, so he knew certain triggers. He knew what not to do.
Absolutely.
So he was able to diffuse the situation. You see them hugging. I saw a follow-up video for a couple of years later, and now they're great friends. So to answer the question, cops get trained for that. They get trained for that. But we also get trained to deal with armed encounters. And then you still see cops killing people.
Yeah.
So it's the individual. It's the individual.
And
we get those calls in Plainfield all the time.
Wow.
All the time. That's why it's such a force right now, such a push on the CIT training, trying to get the mental health professionals and the law enforcement professionals together. Just a couple of weeks ago, I guest spotted at one of their trainings. And I came in there to speak on some of the things that we're talking about now.
Right.
And one of the funny things is that one of the people were saying that when they first started, it's a 5-day training. They said when they first started, like, the cops sit over here, social workers sit over here. They stay separate. You know, cops don't really talk to the social workers, but by day 5, most of them are starting to mingle.
To communicate.
You know, so but every now and then you still have those people that don't want to let go of what they're used to.
Right.
You know,
right.
oh, I'm going to deal with it like this.
Well, what do you do
know.
in those situations with people that are like, you know what? I don't want any part of that. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. How do you manage those type of?
From an admin standpoint, then you have to put measures in place so that you can get rid of a cop like that.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say.
Exactly.
You know, you put a point system, a check system where, okay, you know, the first time you don't listen, you get written up. The second time this happens. The next time you go in front of a board and we take your job. You know, because nobody wants to be broke.
Yeah.
You know, no one wants to be broke. You know, so but I think something has to be in place to make people you know, there's a word that everybody talks about now is about being accountable.
I was going to say accountability.
Like,
That's accountability.
Like, these things were happening 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cops
absolutely.
was killing people of color.
Yep.
You know, but there was no accountability. Like
Right.
you could just, and it was like just normal.
It was par for the course.
You know, so now people are being held accountable.
And
you know,
that's good.
should it be more people being held accountable? Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
this is what starts the ball rolling by people talking about it.
Right.
Absolutely. You know, my mother was paranoid schizophrenic, and she was in a mental institution more than not. And I'll never forget, I was at work one day, and I get a call from the management office of the project she lived in downtown, and I took off. Because all I could think about was, and I don't know if you remember that there was a case called the Eleanor Bumpers case, where this woman who was mentally ill, they killed the woman. Her fingers were shot off, and this was an older, elderly woman who was mentally ill. So from the time I got the call until I just immediately took off. Got downtown. My boss, as a matter of fact, he sent security with me downtown. SWAT was all over the place when I got there. I had to go I went into the building, and I ran all the way up 4 flights of stairs without losing a beat. And I kept saying, "Don't kill my mother! Don't kill my mother!" And the police chief was even there. And I think because of the Eleanor Bumpers case, they were taking more of a accountability role with respect to what happened to the woman. My mother was in the elevator with a knife, and they were trying to get her to come out. And so the police chief said to me, he said, "This is what we have to do to get her out." He said, we'll not shoot your mother. But we're going to have to pepper spray her to get her out of there. So that's what they did. And then there was an ambulance waiting downstairs. They took her straight to the hospital. After that, I'm like, that's it. That's it. So I had her put into a mental health adult residence. And they got her into one. And it was a pretty nice little place. And so that's where she was until she died at age 62. But I think, unfortunately, it always seems to take something
to happen
critical
to
happen before change takes place. We need to start recognizing where the changes need to take place and start working on them before something critical does happen. But unfortunately, it's always been that something critical has to happen before change takes place.
I tell you, what shouldn't be lost in the story that you just told us is the fact that police chief said to you, "We will not shoot your mother." I don't know where this happened, but
in New York.
Kudos to him.
New York.
And hopefully he trains his officers to be the same way.
Yeah, and I think that was I will never, as long as I live, forget that story. I don't remember his name. I think there was just so much going on inside of me, and the fear that my mother would be hurt, that I didn't stop and find out his information. But he did his job, and his people did their job, and I will be eternally grateful for that. Because can you imagine the trauma that I would have had to have lived through the rest of my life, having my mother shot and killed like Eleanor Bumpers up in the Bronx?
And the unfortunate thing is it may not be your mother, but it's
be
someone else. It's happened to someone else, or it's happening to someone else as we speak. So So again, it goes back to your point. Kudos to that chief,
Right.
you know, who took that step and said, look, we're not going to shoot
We're not
your
gonna
mother,
shoot.
but we have to figure out how to de-escalate
This is
the
how we're going to get
situation.
her out of there. Yeah.
And it goes back to what you were saying with the training and talking to officers is there has to be a way to, there's always another way around, unless somebody's got a gun to you or about to stab you or whatever have you, there's always another way to de-escalate situations. Are we on time? Are we at time? Are you kidding me?
Oh my God! I mean, the dialogue today. Has
we
been
need
so
we need more
powerful.
time.
Okay, but we're gonna do the
All
right thing.
We're gonna do the right thing because we do need at some point more time on this subject because I
Oh,
think there's so much
absolutely.
more to discuss. Any last words?
I'm just speechless.
Yeah.
Wow, like I'm speechless. Coming home from incarceration 2 years ago, like I've traveled back into my heritage, grandmother, mother, and it's been amazing, like amazing. So.
Well, we're glad to have you here,
Absolutely.
Seriously, Mama C.
I hear his mind.
Eli, I know his mind. See, is the type of person
Yeah,
that
his
he's
mind
thinking and
Yeah,
he's
you know,
processing.
I
He's
can
got a
feel
whole.
that energy.
I
on
feel
this
it in
side.
him.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel it already. Eli, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you both of you.
Man, you know, great dialogue, and I wish we had more time. But with that said, I'm going to have to say good Sunday afternoon from the Sistahship Network. Mama C,
Yes, ma'am.
Eli, thank you so much for joining us today. We love y'all. We Share Corp, again, our sponsor for the Sistahship. Catch us every Sunday. The first Sunday of the month is the Brothership. That's next week.
Next week.
They will have a topic that'll be everybody's going to be interested in. They will be on at 2:00 on YouTube, the Sistahship Network on YouTube, and you will see us every Sunday except the first Sunday of the month. The Sistahship Network, 2 to 3:30.
Yes, ma'am.
Right here at Gynesis Radio.
And I'm usually in the chat room communicating with you all, but they drug me in here for this dialogue today, and I'm thankful. I feel the good energy, and I'm always thankful for people who are willing to share their expertise, their experiences, and everything that goes along with being a human being on this planet we call Earth.
Absolutely. So with that said, take care, everyone. Happy Sunday. This is the Sistahship Network. Your girl, Stefire. I didn't even announce myself when we came in, did I?
Everyone knows who you are.
Stefire. Your queen of bling. And Tiffany Co Bling right there in the corner. Terry, thank you so much from Gynesis Radio. We are out of here.
All right. We on a Sistahship.
We on a Sistahship.
Yeah,
We on a Sistahship.
Come with us.
We on a Sistahship.
Yeah, we on a Sistahship. Roll with us. We on a Sistahship. Sistahship, we got it. Now come on, let's talk about it. Sistahship, we got it. Now come on, let's talk about it. Sistahship, we got it. Now come on, let's talk about it. Sistahship, we got it. Now come on, let's